Hi everyone, Al the Psych. Um, I'm here again to um, finish up my previous video. I was talking about the book How Bad Do You Want It? It's about basically sports psychology. So I want to finish that up. I don't know if I'll get it done in this segment or if I'll need two segments. We'll just kind of see how it goes. So I'm looking at my notes. I've actually taken some information directly out of the book, and we're talking about athletics. We also talk about mental state. And there was this interesting passage from there, and I want to read this. Results from psychological science, and what they did is this was an experiment where you put your hand in freezing water. This revealed that students who had the fewest adverse experiences while growing up had a low pain tolerance. Okay, but so did the students who suffered through a whole slew of childhood trauma. So that's kind of interesting. You're getting different ends of the spectrum here, but you're getting the same result. Now, the students who kept their hand in the icy water the longest were the ones who experienced neither heaven nor hell while growing up. Okay, they didn't have the extremes in terms of traumatic events, but they had something in between, something in the middle. So in my mind, I'm thinking, do we file this under dealing successfully with some adversities is a good thing? That might be. I know there's information out there that being able to have some adversities kind of builds up your resilience, your ability to bounce back. If you're overwhelmed, though, that can have the opposite effect. And if you haven't had to face any adversity, it might be pretty difficult to face something big once you're dealt that particular hand. So interesting, I thought. So the pain tolerance resilience is greatest in men and women who, as children, experienced just some, but not too much adversity. So now gifted athletes, and again I'm just going back to what was presented in the book. So gifted athletes who were born with great ability, but sailed to the top of their sport, never had to kind of deal with any adversity in that field, may have a disadvantage when resilience is concerned. So now, according to Dave Collins, and hopefully I'm saying this name right, Ian McNamara, observed that low points often become turning points in the development of resilience. And again, I think this is going to be related to each individual's mindset in terms of how they're going to deal with adversity. The Journal of Psychosomatic Research report indicates that subjects' pain tolerance was significantly greater when the subjects were angry. Now, I don't know if that's because of maybe an adrenaline rush or because it's a distraction factor, but that's what they found. So going back to athletes and resilience. So athletes who have everything it takes to succeed but lack the highest level of resilience are psychologically dependent on things going their way, not facing too much adversity in competition. So this dependency then makes them a little more nervous, a little more emotionally reactive when they are facing some challenges, when things aren't going exactly as they would expect. So now the fed-up athlete, on the other hand, no longer hopes for the uncontrollable to work out in his favor. He's resolved to take responsibility for his racing, to avenge adversities past and future. Again, I'm assuming we've got the right mindset here. But again, having had faced adversity in the past and dealt with it, I think that might be key in my mind. I don't know if the book necessarily says that, but in my mind, having faced adversity and dealt with it successfully, I think that's going to be a key going forward. Okay, now, some other points from the book. Training yields improvement by reducing the amount of effort an athlete experiences at any given period. So when an athlete's training is on track, he or she, should find that she's able to go faster and faster at the same level of perceived effort. It's like, yeah, I'm working at level A, but I'm actually going faster than I was, 3 weeks ago. So that the same effort is perceived. Now, I thought this was important. Psychologists distinguish two types of perfectionism. And, a lot of times in sports, you do get athletes who tend to be perfectionists. And some of the psychologists that have studied this talked about adaptive and maladaptive perfectionism. So adaptive perfectionism is a never satisfied mindset that can have a positive influence on performance. And maladaptive perfectionism often leads athletes to engage in self-destructive behaviors such as overtraining. Okay, so this type of perfectionism is known to be associated with low self-esteem and insecurity. So if we kind of dissect this a little bit, I mean, if you're comfortable with who you are, what you're doing, and you've got these perfectionistic tendencies, and maybe you don't quite hit the mark, but you're still comfortable with who you are, you know that you can still go ahead and you can still strive for that particular goal without getting caught up with, now this is something about my sense of self. Okay, so now we're gonna switch gears here a little bit. Okay, so let's shift gears here, and I'm going to talk about a couple of what we call effects. Okay, so the first one that's listed is the audience effect. So the influence of the presence of other people on an individual's behavior. Now this goes beyond sports, but for now I'll keep it in sports and then I'll expand that. So in essence, it coaxes people into holding themselves to higher standards. So the audience effect elevates people's standards not only for moral behavior, but also task performance that might be judged. So if we look at sports, is that audience effect going to assist you when you're running a race? Because, people are watching you, you want to perform your best. I think, again, it might depend on the mindset. Do you have performance anxiety to where that can kind of start getting you? We talked in the previous video about, the self-awareness and how you can kind of get caught up in thinking about the mechanics of, when you're running or swimming or biking, as opposed to just being in the flow. Okay. And then, like I said, this actually expands well beyond sports. There's been experiments where they watch people in bathrooms at the sink anyway, and they watch where if there's nobody there except the one individual, will they wash their hands or will they not wash their hands? At what frequency? And if there's actually people there, does it increase the amount of times that they wash their hands? Okay, so if there are other people there, the individuals are more likely, who have used the bathroom, are more likely to wash their hands than if there's nobody there, then they're less likely to wash their hands, or they wash it fewer times than if somebody was there. Okay, I hope I got that that point across, but there is that audience effect. Okay, so if somebody's watching me, I'm going to be less likely to do something, like socially inappropriate, like, burp out loud or something like that. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of what the audience effect is. If I'm by myself, okay, all right, maybe I'm going to be a little bit more crass. All right, now, the the success effect. Okay, so this is experiencing success in the performance of a given task that enhances subsequent performance in the same task by increasing self-efficacy or perceived competence. So this happens even when subjects have been told that they have performed successfully, even when they haven't performed successfully. So they will actually perform better later if they've been told they've been very successful at what they've done, or they ran really well. So even if they haven't, later on, that's going to help them perform a little bit better. So I think maybe we file this one under success breeds success. Now, we talk about high expectations. So high expectations for improvement can succeed, for improvement and success, are among the more powerful coping skills an endurance athlete can possess. Okay. High expectations for improvement and success. And what I want to say is that we can actually generalize this out into a lot of other forms and scenarios. So this also would apply to teachers and their students. If teachers want to have high expectations for their students, because when they do, they tend to perform better. Now, having said that, we don't want to overwhelm athletes or overwhelm students and have the expectations so high initially, or expect that the end result is going to happen so quickly. We do want to take steps toward that level of performance. Okay, so it has to be done, in my mind, as I'm adding my own 2 cents to this, I think it has to be done kind of systematically. Okay, so we expect something up here, high level performance, but we are going to get that high level performance, through steps, systematically. It's not, we don't want to overwhelm somebody and expect it to be a little too fast to where, they fail, and then that can defeat the purpose, I believe. Okay. So, people put more effort into sports and other activities, academics, whatever, when they perceive themselves as being good at them. So it's unusual, for students to study their hardest in their least favorite subject. Just because if something comes easier for you, it's kind of like, it's so rewarding because you can see the gains and it's easy, and maybe you're comparing yourself to other people and it's like, oh, this is something I'm really good at and I'm better than, John or Jill or whoever over there. That's kind of an interesting phenomenon. I know that when I was in school, I didn't like chemistry, and it was a challenge to really work at that. So last time, my previous video, I mentioned a little bit about Steve Prefontaine, and the book does talk about him a little bit, and it mentions that Steve Prefontaine's main goal, he wanted to win, but his main goal was not to win, but to give his absolute best effort. Now remember, we talked about the fact that you want a qualitative goal for most people, as opposed to go out there and do your best, because usually when you have that qualitative goal, it seems to improve performance. Apparently that's not the case with everybody. It's not the case with Steve Prefontaine. Yes, he wanted to win. Yes, he often won. Um, but in his mindset, it was like, okay, I'm gonna run my best race. Okay. Um, Now, there's a term called defensive pessimism. Um, so this is articulating a preemptive excuse for failure so that you can calm down and save your mental energy for when it's needed. So this is something that Steve Prefontaine did. You know, he would, before the race, he would talk about, oh, geez, I don't feel good. I don't have any energy today. You know, my muscles are sore, you know, blah, 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 blah. For him, it worked. For him, it was kind of like reducing stress and kind of reducing the pressures of having to succeed, kind of like giving him that built-in excuse. You know, psychology is interesting in how it impacts people in different ways. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking for some people, for some athletes, if I start talking like that, am I engaging in a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like, okay, I've kind of given myself the excuse and now I can just go ahead and use it. In Steve Prefontaine's case, he gave himself that excuse, but what it did is it relieved anxiety and it didn't cause any detrimental effects. It actually assisted him. Okay, and I actually understand that because in my mind, I've done the same thing when I've been in competitive situations. I think it's for me kind of like a you know, stress reliever. Kind of takes the pressure off, so to speak. Okay, one more thing. Athletes of different personality might tell themselves something different in terms of emotion. So if you're going to be faced with a challenge and you're nervous about it, you can reframe that nervousness to, you know, I'm nervous to, I'm excited. Big difference. Nervous to, I'm excited. You know, your body's going through the same chemicals, or, you know, the chemicals are going to be the same whether you're excited or nervous, whether you're excited or fearful. You know, you've still got that rush of adrenaline, that rush of cortisol. But now cognitively, how you think about it is going to be very important. So if you kind of reframe it, and this doesn't just have to be with athletics, but you know, if you frame the situation as I'm excited, you know, it's like, yeah, this is going to be interesting, fun, whatever. A rush versus, you know, I'm nervous and this is really freaking me out. Okay, two entirely different cognitive mindsets there. And I think I mentioned this in one of my other videos too, that, you know, this will generalize to other things like, for example, public speaking. That's like the #1 anxiety producing scenario for a lot of people. So if you look at public speaking as, yeah, this is going to be exciting versus, you know, this is terrifying, whole different mindset, and it can really impact your performance. Anyway, okay, man, I threw in a lot of information today and in the previous video. Hope it was interesting for you. Again, this is all for informational purposes. If you have some other information to add or some corrections to what I said, go ahead and put it in the comments. I appreciate it. Just do it kindly. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.